We are Kentucky, Tennessee Living, and we are here at the special presentation of the Women's Suffrage of Tennessee. This program was part of the Tennessee State's Museum Traveling Trunk exhibit. This program was done by the Newbern Library Director, Mitzi Willis, and was held at the Newbern Depot in Newbern, Tennessee. All aboard! Once again, we ask everyone to like, subscribe, and share this video, as this helps us to be able to go to these presentations and museums to share the history of Kentucky and Tennessee. Come along with us on a journey through time as we learn about what took place in Tennessee while women were fighting for the right to vote. And now, we turn this presentation over to Mrs. Willis.
Okay. We're here today to talk about women's suffrage. But the first thing we're going to do is we're going to have a vote. But only the men can vote.
Not the two.
So,
And he's back
should I do this program with the lights on or off? And only the men can vote. Should I do them with it on? Should I do them with it off? Okay, now was that fair?
Save money, save electricity, only unless I'm using the museum, then I can turn them on.
Yeah, that sounds about right. But was that fair?
No.
No! That's what was going on before women's suffrage. Men had all the power. Okay, I'm done with you.
Okay,
Dismissed.
Okay, what does suffrage mean? What does the word suffrage mean?
No power.
Suffrage is the right to vote.
Okay.
Suffrage means the right to vote.
I never looked that up.
Suffrage, it does mean the right to vote. Suffrage simply means the right to vote. Tennessee was called the Perfect 36 during the suffrage movement because at the time there were 48 states. We didn't have Alaska and Hawaii yet. So they needed 3/4 of the states to vote to ratify an amendment to the Constitution. So 3/4 of 48 is 36. So when Tennessee voted, they were called the Perfect 36. Who knows what the 19th Amendment says? It says the right of citizens of the United States to vote shall not be denied or abridged by the United States or by any state on account of sex. Congress shall have power to enforce this article by appropriate legislation. So the 19th Amendment gave all women the right to vote. Okay, most of my information I got from, well, all my information I got from my trunk, but most of it came from Carol Busey's article, Tennessee Women and the Vote, Tennessee's Pivotal Role in the Passage of the 19th Amendment. Being a librarian, I want to make sure I give credit where credit is due. So, women had worked for over 70 years for the right to vote. It's believed that it began in 1948 in Seneca Falls, New York, where Elizabeth Cady...
No.
1848! 1848!
Wait a minute now.
Y'all would not believe how hard I had when I was typing 1920 last night. I kept putting 2020 and I think, that's not right. That's not right. 1848.
Well, accept that.
Elizabeth Cady Stanton, Lucretia Mott, and about 300 others, men and women, met and drew up the first public protest about America against women's inferiority. The program was based on the Declaration of Independence. But along with the principle that all men and women were created equal, they wanted to denounce the absolute tyranny of men over women and demand equal rights in marriage, education, religion, employment, and politics. In the 1850s, The National Women's Rights Conventions were held annually. Women's suffrage, the right to vote, was the cornerstone because they believed that that gave women the right to protect themselves. They didn't have to depend on someone else to protect them. Then World War I came, and the men went to war, and the women had to help more in America outside the home. After the war ended, President Wilson was petitioned to support women's suffrage because women had been vital during the war. The president urged Congress to pass the amendment using the same argument. By June 1919, the amendment had passed both houses and was ready to go to state legislature. And as I said, 36 states out of the 48 were needed to pass the amendment. By Susan B. Anthony's birthday, who she was a staunch supporter of women's rights, you know, we've had the coins with her picture on them, 32 states had ratified in February of 1920. 3 more soon joined, bringing the number to 35. But where was number 36? Needed 1 more. When Tennessee suffragists began to call for ratification in May of 1920, the General Assembly had already dismissed for the season. They were out. The suffragists called for a special session. After a telegram from President Wilson urging the session, Governor Roberts announced he would call a special session after his primary, because he didn't know if he was going to get reelected or not. So he wanted to make sure he got reelected before he called for the special session. There was significant opposition for suffrage in Tennessee. Many felt the balance of power would be disrupted. Traditional factionalism divided the state as well. There was East versus West, because East Tennessee had been, in the Civil War, East Tennessee had been for the Union. We had been for the southern states. And in fact, Tennessee was the first state that went back into the Union, voted to go back to the Union after the war. There was dry counties versus wet counties. They, were in argument all the time. Plus there were the urban areas like Memphis, Nashville, Chattanooga, and the red handkerchief boys of the hills and hollers. And I did not know, I learned today, that they wore red handkerchiefs in the mountains as solidarity for each other. So that is where the red handkerchief boys comes from.
Was that for the union or what?
No, that's
Or was it
just
solidarity?
just for each other. Like they had coal wars with like the government, the coal miners fought against the government, and they wore the red handkerchiefs
So
to
community
show
support.
yes,
Right.
support.
Okay. Sense of community.
Yes. The opponents, or antis as they were called, were led by Josephine Pearson. She showed up in Nashville wearing a cluster of 3 red roses to show her rank in her position in her movement. The suffragists soon adopted yellow roses as their flower. So the suffrage fight in Tennessee became known as the War of the Roses. During the week prior to the Tennessee House of Representatives vote, both sides descended on the Hermitage Hotel in Nashville and set up their headquarters there. A man was quoted as saying that the Battle of Nashville during the Civil War looked like a 5 o'clock tea party compared to the fighting that was happening that summer. The special session of the Tennessee General Assembly met in the summer of 1920. The amendment passed the Senate easily, but the House of Representatives would not be the same. On August 18th, 1920, members of the House of Representatives filed into the House chambers. The fate of women all over the country rested in the hands of 96 men from Tennessee. The suffragists believed the House to be an even split because a lot of them were wearing, most of them were wearing their red or their yellow roses, and as they began to count, they could see that it looked like a pretty even split. Then the Speaker of the House, Seth Walker, began to call roll for a vote. The sixth name was Harry Byrne from Newbern, Tennessee, and that is around Murfreesboro. He wore the red roses of the anti-suffragists, so he was against suffrage according to what he wore on his lapel, but he voted in favor of the amendment. His vote had made the difference. The amendment passed 49 to 47.
Thank you, his mother.
And if I'm not mistaken, his mother was one of the founding members of GFWC.
Okay,
She was one of the first to go to New York.
so Tennessee had become the 36 states to pass the amendment. They had become the perfect 36. When Harry was called to explain himself the next day, he said he had received a note from his mother who had urged him to vote for suffragists. And he said since his mother had always given him the best advice, he decided he should vote for the suffragist movement. So yay for Harry's mama.
Motherhood.
That's right. That's right.
Mama knows best.
On August 26, 1920, the amendment was officially signed in Washington, D.C. After 72 years of effort, women of every state could now vote. Tennessee had become the perfect 36.
Now can I add my little
You
bit?
can add whatever you want to. I was hoping you would, Miss Naomi.
All right, Harry T, after he changed, the ones that were against the suffrage thought they had Harry T in their, what do you call it?
Corner.
Their
The
corner.
corner of their pocket.
All right, they just knew they had. Then when he voted to go with the suffrage, then they rebelled against him. So the ones that were for the suffrage, some of them put a guard with him. All right, he didn't like to have a guard around him, but they put him in a special room away from the others because they were afraid he would be attacked. So this is in the courthouse. He managed to climb out the window, walk along the ledge, down and escape to, I can't think where, but somewhere in Nashville that he escaped to and got away from those who were really antagonistic against him, just really upset with him. It's interesting to read
It
his
is
life.
interesting.
Yes, or that part of it. I hope I have the stories right, because it's been, 3 years since we talked about it, because we did that on 2020. Our woman's
Yes,
did.
yes,
General
Absolutely.
Federation of Women.
yes, ma'am. So that is how Tennessee played a vital role in women's suffrage.
So, ladies, I hope you're good mothers.
That's right.
And your sons agree with you.
That's
and
right.
Give them good advice.
Yes. Yes, ma'am. Y'all got any questions? Y'all are free to look at the stuff. And
We at Kentucky Tennessee Living wish to thank Mitzi and Lynn Willis for their wonderful hospitality while we were attending the museum and this special presentation of the women's suffrage movement. Don't forget to hit that like button, as the more likes we receive, the more likely YouTube is to suggest our videos to other viewers. Also, to receive notice when we upload a new video, be sure to subscribe and click the bell for notifications. We thank you for continuing to support Kentucky Tennessee Living as we discover the mysteries of Appalachian history.